Good afternoon or evening or morning, I guess, depending on where you are, somewhere around the world. So, glad to have you all in this session, which is being hosted by the Joint Israel Commission of the Reconstructionist Movement. Um, I'm Fred Andes. I'm the lay co-chair. Rabbi Amita with me is the rabbinic co-chair of the group. That's why we are the Joint Israel Commission, because it's both lay and rabbinical people on the group. Um, and we'll put information about the Joint Israel Commission in the chat. Um, and welcome folks taking a look at our page on the website. Basically, for those who aren't familiar with the JIC, we really have two functions, one of which we're particularly highlighting today in this session. One is we do work to try to provide resources for Reconstructionists, whether synagogues or members of synagogues or otherwise, to help them understand and have helpful conversations about Israel-Palestine issues. And we have done papers in the past about Beyond Two States, and other annexation issues and other topics. We've both provided resources, information, and had webinars, and always very interested in ideas about other similar issues that we should be helping people understand and talk about. The other aspect of what the GIC mission statement involves, and the one we're going to focus on today really is what we call shutafut, which for the Israelis and those versed in Hebrew more than I am, it means partnership. What the movement has done through the JIC has been to identify groups both in Israel and Palestine that are doing really good work on the ground, often bringing Israelis and Palestinians together in constructive ways. And what we've tried to do is elevate these groups, show them to the movement. Many times people don't know that these groups are out there doing great work, which they can support financially and otherwise, which they can connect with through the individually or through their synagogues. And we really want to promote that. We want to promote people in the movement connecting with these groups and the work they do in constructive ways. So what we are trying to do today in this short span of time is show you and let you hear from several of these groups that are doing this great work on the ground. And so you'll be able, and Rabbi Amita will introduce them, and you'll be able to hear from them briefly, and then have an opportunity to put questions in the chat that we can ask them after the speakers are done. And then really, we're going to encourage you to follow up with these groups and see if there are great ways you can connect with them. Amita.
Okay, welcome everyone. So yes, I'm the co-chair with Fred, and the reason that I actually was brought on to the commission is because I had just been living in Israel for the last 13 years and had a lot of connections on the ground. So I was brought in for the shutafut, the partnerships. And I'm just, without any further ado, we're just going to let each of the people that you came to hear speak about their work, the work of their organization, and specifically how it's been impacted since October 7th. So we're going to begin with Itamar Avneri from Standing Together. Hopefully you've read their bios. So Itamar is on the national leadership of Standing Together and one of the founders, and he's also on the Tel Aviv-Yafo City Council, and he's also a vocal LGBTQ. He's a voice in the LGBTQ community in Israel, and I guess specifically in Tel Aviv-Yafo. So here goes.
So hello, thank you, Amita. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, everybody. Good evening from Tel Aviv. My name is Itamar, and I'm part of the Standing Together movement. In Arabic, it's Nakef Man. In Hebrew, it's Omdim Beyachad. Standing Together is a joint Jewish-Palestinian movement working inside Israel. And our goal for 9 years now, founded the movement in late 2015. And our goal is to build a new majority inside Israeli society, a majority that would be powerful enough to demand and then achieve what we believe we all deserve, which is Israeli-Palestinian peace, end of the occupation, of course, equality and social and environmental justice. We are fighting to end the occupation and for Israeli-Palestinian peace for years now, but of course, since October 7, the feeling is that this is maybe an historical mission of ours and of many other organizations and activists across Israel and Palestine. We see our job as not only to put an end to this horrible, terrible, brutal war right now in Gaza, but also to prevent the next war. And if you want to prevent the next war, you have to move forward and lift the siege and end the occupation and demand our leaders to bring us what we all deserve, which is Palestinian-Israeli peace. And we're doing it because we believe that only through peace we can all get security and dignity and independence and historical justice and the basic human right to dream and then plan and then build a future. So this is what we are fighting for. So right now, standing together is mobilizing people on the ground. There are many demonstrations, many campaigns. Our main campaign right now is titled Ken Shalom, Yes Peace. We are trying to remind people that it's not only about this specific moment and that there is another option on the menu. We don't have to engage in perpetual war, just like Benjamin Netanyahu promised us in 2015. He said that we will always live by the sword. We tried to remind the Israeli society that we believed in peace once and we can do it again. And if we reach our hand to the Palestinians, they will reach their hand in return. So what we are trying to do right now, as I said, is to mobilize people with big campaigns all around the country. But we know that mobilizing is not enough. People are getting tired of mobilizing, from demonstrating. And so we also try to organize people. Standing Together is right now the biggest grassroots movement in Israel. And we have many communities around the country. We call those communities chapters. I'm talking to you from the Purple House in Tel Aviv. We have 4 Purple Houses around the country, places where people can come, see a movie, learn Arabic, speak, have a beer, have a coffee, have a tea, and just be part of a big organization, big community. And we also try to develop leadership. We acknowledge the lack of leadership in Israeli society and especially in the peace camp. And so we are trying to give our students, we have a lot of students, the right words and the right theory of change and the right tools so they would be able to be the next leaders of the Israeli peace camp. Now, I don't have a lot of time, so I want to tell you about one specific campaign that we did very, very fast. Palestinians inside Israel, and I'm not a Palestinian, but I'm not talking on behalf of them, but I do know that, are afraid to speak. They are afraid to speak because they suffer discrimination. People got arrested for stories on Instagram and stuff like that, and they were afraid to speak up. And so we've decided to do a huge demonstration inside the Palestinian society in Israel, but a different demonstration. Not a demonstration per se, but we decided that we are going to gather aid, humanitarian aid in Palestinian city inside Israel and get it into Gaza. We thought that we are going to get 1 truck of humanitarian aid, but it became the biggest demonstration inside the Palestinian society in Israel. And in the end, we found ourselves with 400 trucks of humanitarian aid that we are now getting into Gaza step by step. And the reason, the idea behind this campaign was to remind people that they should take a side in this conflict. But the sides are not as follow. All Israelis with Benjamin Netanyahu against all Palestinians with Hamas. The real sides are the warmongers on one side that are feeding from one another, and just the people, Palestinians and Israelis on the other side that can work together, demand a better future for everybody, collect humanitarian aid for one another. And if you want to pick a side, my suggest is that this is the side you should choose. Choose the side of the people, Israelis and Palestinians, because we have the same interest, the interest in peace, equality, and social justice, and to put an end to this war and to the occupation. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you, Itamar. Okay, so the next speaker is Oded Mazur, who's the rabbi of Kol HaNeshama since 2019. Many people probably have been there at some point. And I don't know, Oded has a whole bio of other things that he's done. He's a graduate of HUC in Yerushalayim, and he has lived on Hanaton, and he worked at Leo Beck in Haifa, and he is a co-editor of a Siddur for the Chagim, and many other things, and a Mandel Fellow, and a what's it now, the Honey. He's a lot of things, but I'm going to let him speak. So thanks, Oded, for being with us.
Thank you, Amita, and thank you, everyone. And I see some very good friends here with us this evening, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. Yeah, I'm the rabbi of Kol HaNeshama since September 2019. As you know, from the history that we all share, that means that after 6 months of being the rabbi of the community, we entered COVID, and before we had the opportunity to be in a post-COVID move. The judicial overhaul started in Israel, and then the war. And to make the connection between myself and Kol HaNeshama, and between Itamar and Standing Together, about 3 weeks or so after the October 7th events, Standing Together initiated big meetings in different places around Israel, and they turned to us, to Kol HaNeshama in Jerusalem, as a venue for their Jerusalem event. And we agreed immediately, and we wanted for something like that to happen, for Jews and Arabs to come together and say, we do not want a war and the atrocities to continue. And then we were practically blocked and threatened by the Jerusalem municipality, and we had to, at the last moment, ask for a different venue to be found, and we were very sorry for that, and I was invited to come as a guest speaker to this event. We as a community have been involved since the founding of Kol HaNeshama, many years before I became the rabbi, under the leadership of Rabbi Levi Wyman Kelman, a very active community in Tikkun Olam, in the LGBTQ inclusiveness, in welcoming asylum seekers in Jerusalem, in seeking peace and cooperation and interfaith, etc., etc. And in the past few years, more and more in sustainability and ecology. The day of October 7th found us dancing, trying to dance on the morning of Simchat Torah, and realizing what's going on and what was revealed throughout the day and in the month since of what happened on that morning. And when people were looking for a way to be involved, to be with a feeling of agency, not feeling powerless, we understood that that's our role as a community, to give the people, the members and outside circles of our community, the ability to be involved, to help, to assist, to support, etc., etc. The first few weeks when we were not allowed even to gather in our main sanctuary and we had to pray downstairs, our main sanctuary turned into a place where people brought in food and clothes and games for children, and we would collect and then pass it on to people in need. And one of the first things we realized is that people are focusing on, for good reasons, those who were evacuated from the Gaza envelope, from the Lebanese border, but it was brought to our attention that the asylum seekers community in Jerusalem is in a bad shape as well, and no one is looking in their direction. And that the non-official Arab Bedouin villages in the Negev, in the south of Israel, are not getting any attention. And we felt that this is our commitment as a progressive Jewish community to look not only for those that everyone is looking out for, but others under our in our society, in our wider circles. But I need also to add that from that first day, 4 families within our community discovered that they lost family members on October 7th in the kibbutzim around Gaza. 2 families in our community had family members who were hostages. One of them we already know was murdered. Hirsch Pauline Goldberg, his cousins are members of our community. And Karina Arayev, one of the women soldiers, her cousin is our CEO. And she's still held in captivity by Hamas. And so many, dozens of our community, children of members, parents in our kindergarten, etc., were drafted to the army. And the feeling was that we need these people there. We need to protect ourselves. Our need to protect ourselves does not take from any point from our need to take care of those in need and to seek peace. There is a very delicate balance between the two. And I can tell you that some of the most devoted peace activists in our community, who would on every Motzei Shabbat be in the demonstrations, also at the same time care for their child or children, maybe all of their children, maybe their son and daughters-in-law as well, when they're serving in the army. And we need to be a source of comfort and hope and resilience and agency for our members as we try to hold all of this together these days.
Thank you, Oded. I'm going to ask Nir to speak. Nir is the CEO, I think, of Bina, which I think has changed its, it's a movement for social, you can say what it is, because I think of it as mostly of a learning institute, but it seems like now it's learning and social activism, and you've had all kinds of roles at Bina over the years. So I'm just going to let you start to speak. Thank you, Nir.
Sure. Yeah, so we were always education organization and a Bet Midrash and a secular yeshiva and study places with social activism in many places. So it hasn't changed. So Bina is a big organization. We're in the field of Jewish education. Our target audience is the mainstream of the Israelis, people who study in the huge system of the Jewish secular public educational system, people who serve in the army. We work with municipalities in the public sphere. And our mission is very simple, I think. Say in Israel, it's not a big mission to gather Jews together. You can step into a big high school in Ashdod or in Rishon LeZion or in Be'er Sheva, and you will meet thousands of students in the Jewish education system. So the big mission is not to bring them together into Jewish education, is to see what do they study, what is the content, who is teaching Jewish education in the Israeli public school system, because usually the public education system in Israel, secular Israelis as a whole, used to outsource their Judaism to let other organizations, most of the time Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, and organizations from the extreme right-wing Orthodox, to do the Jewish education at school, the Bar Mitzvah year, the ceremony of getting the Torah, and so on and so forth, both in Jewish education, in the army, and of course, what's happening in the public sphere. And the Binah mission is to do Judaism in-house, not outsource, to do Judaism the way Israeli lives. And the majority of the Jewish Israelis are not Orthodox or not obligated to the halacha, to the Jewish law. So Judaism as an inspiration, as a way of life, but not as an authority on our life. Our main mission in the last 2 or 3 years were very focused naturally on this big clash between Judaism and democracy in Israel, which our main role in this issue is saying that in Israel, Judaism, Jewish tradition is very, very central to how Israeli thinks and see their societies. And if we will not speak democracy through Jewish lenses, we will lose democracy and we will lose Israel. The fact that Judaism and democracy are in clash, and you have to say, I mean, part of the democratic camp or part of the Jewish camp, this is a disaster for Israel. And our role is to say Judaism and democracy can work together and to talk about peace, justice, equality in a Jewish language. A few words about what happened to us since October 7th. After understanding where are we at, it took us 2 or 3 days to have many programs, people and students all over Israel. Some of them are participants from the States living in different departments around Israel, just to understand where is everyone, that everyone is okay, to understand who in the staff is and with us or who is not, who went to reserve, who is her husband went to reserve, and to collect the staff. We start to ask ourselves, what is our mission now? And we want to do the one thing we know to do best, to do Jewish life, to do Kabbalat Shabbat, to do Jewish ceremony. And we went out to the many hotels where people evacuated to. And I will tell you one story about one hotel I was spending the first Shabbat after October 7th. We went there. We weren't sure that we are doing the right thing, because who knows, people that just came from the biggest disaster that anyone can imagine. We asked us, that's what they need, a Kabbalat Shabbat. So we just said we will try, and we started Kabbalat Shabbat. Many people came, and we started singing, and people started to cry, and we started to cry, and we understood that something is happening here. And then there was the siren started, so we went to the stair room, and the woman who lead the Kabbalat Shabbat said, okay, we are here, so let's sing. So we start singing Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Shalom, to sing in the stair room. And then 10 minutes, after 10 minutes, we went back to the hall singing. And then I had one image that going with me with all the things we are doing since October 7th, and we are doing a lot. And this is the image that I guess many people know of Tibia from Fiddler on the Roof, that asks 2 simple questions. The first one, we are like Fiddler on the Roof, standing on this roof, very dangerous, unstable. And he asks, why do you stay there if it's so dangerous? And the answer is so simple, because this is our home. We live here. This is why we stay here. And how do you keep your balance? Tradition. Tradition is so important on these moments, to keep doing what you are doing, to keep playing the same music. And everyone now in Israel is searching for tradition. The question is, who is going to fill? Who is going to say what is Jewish tradition in Israel? And our role is to be there and to say this kind of Judaism is about democracy, equality, justice. This is the kind of tradition we want people to keep here in Israel. So we are doing a lot since October 7th in the Gaza envelope, helping people coming together to their Yishuvim for Jewish traditions and Jewish holidays and Jewish calendar, and many more things. Kabbalot Shabbat in the Hostage Square, and many more, but I see my time is done, so I will stop here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Nir. Okay, we're going to go to our next speaker, which is Malila Hellner Eshed, who is known to many of you as a teacher of Kabbalah, of Zohar, and Tikkunei HaZohar, and she's at Hartman Institute and Hebrew University and the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. And the reason I invited Malila is because she's also right now the chair of the steering committee of the Sulcha Peace Project, which I was on that committee for 10 years when I was living in Yerushalayim. So thanks, Malila, for coming.
Hello, everyone. I first of all want to thank the speakers. It's such a wonderful opportunity to listen to all your initiatives. And thank you for everybody who joined this session. I want to speak as a member of the Sulcha, and I want to say that Sulcha is an organization that brings together Israelis and Palestinians in all states of violence, quiet, in every situation. We're committed to come to face-to-face meetings with real people from the other side of this conflict. The Sulcha was started in 2000 in the middle of the Intifada, and as the years went by, we have concentrated mostly with working together Israelis and people in the West Bank. Okay, so we're talking about people in the occupied territories, and the idea of the Sulcha is really trying to foster the humanity of people on both sides of this conflict. I think you're all aware, it doesn't matter where you're standing, but that continued violence, and especially after the 7th of October, really creates a state where it's very easy to dehumanize the other, right? And that's the greatest danger from the point of view of what we believe in. The greatest danger is when people on the other side lose their faces, when we lose our faces, when we do not see the other as a person created in the image of God. And what we have found is that one of the most important ways of bringing people back their faces is by actually meeting in, heart to heart and face to face gatherings where we pray together and sing together and eat together and have workshops together. And we've been doing these for years, like in every few months. And I would say that since the 7th of October, we've like quadrupled our activity, because I think that years of becoming a tightly knit community of friends, Israelis and Palestinians, allowed us to kind of get through the shock of the horrific events of the massacre of the 7th of October, and to kind of say, okay, and immediately in its aftermath, the horrific things that we're doing to Gaza as Israel, and to say, can we not just buckle under and find a way to be together? And we've been leading, we started by leading grieving circles for Israelis and Palestinians, mamash mourning and grieving circles, in understanding that even if, my friend here is mourning over 30 people in her family that were killed in Gaza, and I'm mourning for the son of my neighbors that was killed on the 7th of October, we can be together in our mourning. And I think it's because what we're doing is spiritual activism, meaning that we're holding the spirit of humanity and also the spirit of what we could be, and what does it mean to be all children of God in many ways, of allowing all these people to come together. And we've been doing a lot of aid to refugee camps in the West Bank, mostly in Al-Fawar area of Hebron. and figuring out ways of how can we meet in these times of violence, and really thinking like, how can we meet in Area C? How can we find ways of bringing people together who have no rights at all, who have no way of coming out of their villages or refugee camps, but there are places that actually Israelis and Palestinians can meet, and that's what we've been doing a lot of in the past few months. And I want to say that without this sense of, it's like Shekhinah is lying in the dirt, bleeding away. And I think that what the Israelis and Palestinians in the Sulha are doing is to say, we have to be on the ground. We have to be, whatever is going to be a solution, wherever things are going to go, you have to have people on the ground that are going to do the work of making sure that we meet as human beings, and that we see each other, that we hear each other's personal stories, that people turn into people that have history and ancestry behind them, that they have hopes and prayers for the future, and that we can, just stand there resisting the desire of so many forces to keep us apart. So I would say that that's been the work that we've been doing since the 7th of October. And it's been, I want to say, spiritually for me, it's been a lifesaver, because there's a lot of work to be done on the legal front and on the political front, and we're all part of that in many ways. But I think that kind of insisting on finding ways to be together and meet, even if we had to do it for months on Zoom with our friends from the West Bank, is to say we are all living on this earth, we are all living on this Eretz, and we are the ones who have to be kind of in the job of peace, in the job of humanity. And so thank you for allowing me to present this. I'm very happy that Amita and Rosalind that are here are also part of the Sulha. It's a pleasure to see you here. And just to say that we need help from American clergy. We need the help of relationship, of understanding that people are doing amazing things, and to allow it not to be under the radar for American Reconstructionist rabbis, but to have it, raised up, and understand that that can be such an important part, is to be in relationship with that. And I think that's being more part of the solution than being part of a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Malila. And yes, I mean, just to emphasize that the Shutafut initiative and is that to build these relationships and have the people who are speaking to the 59 of us that are here, or the 50 something, that to bring them by Zoom to your congregations. And so I'm right now only giving the NGO names and links. I just put that in the chat, but there'll be ways, if these people want to be contacted individually, there'll be ways to do that afterwards. I'll, follow up. So now our last speaker is Michael Cohen, Rabbi Michael Cohen, representing Machon Arava, who is also a 1990 graduate of the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College. And I'm just going to let you take it away, Michael.
Thanks, Amita, and thanks. Great for seeing so many friends and supporters of our work, and for so many of my colleagues in Shutafut. I will say, I just got back from Israel. I'll be stateside for 2 years, so if you need someone to come speak in your congregation about the Arava Institute or the larger endeavor, I'm more than happy to do that. So John Lennon saying there are no problems, only solutions. And when it comes to this conflict, I like to focus on the solutions and not the problems. The problems are deep, they're painful, they're hard. In some ways, we're not going to really answer them till we can have truth and reconciliation committees once we reach a solution. And when I mean a solution, I mean creating the conditions so a solution can emerge, so the occupation can end, a Palestinian entity can be created, whether it's one state, two states, confederation, federation, to be seen, and that a safe democratic Israel can exist. So it's about creating those conditions. I will say that one of the many things that we are up against is what I call the asymmetry of the sensational. The sensational, the violence, always gets all the attention, and it's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the totality. All the work that you've heard is also a reality, and we have to get better at overcoming that asymmetry of the sensational. So Israelis and Palestinians have other models of who and what the other are, and also models of who they can be as well. And finally, all of us need to get much better at enlarging the circle. Those Israelis and Palestinians who come to organizations have a degree of buy-in, even though we're going to disagree. We've got to learn how to expand that to more Israelis and Palestinians, and we have to get much, much better at that, particularly once this horrible war is over. So having said that, since 1996, I've been bouncing back and forth between Israel and the United States, working for the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies, where we bring together Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, Moroccans, as well as students from the United States and around the world. We have an undergraduate program, and we also have a program for interns to work in a number of our transboundary research centers. Our latest research center is the Center for Applied Environmental Diplomacy, where we basically learned that in the track 2 level, we could be much more nimble than track 1 government negotiators and diplomats. And we've been able to succeed in areas where they don't. And we're working to teach them how to do that in somewhat of a chutzpahdik way. Out of that, our Jumpstarting Hope Gaza project has begun based upon years of working in Gaza and with Gazans, bringing off-grid decentralized energy, water, and food models to Gaza as we go forward. There are 160 plus organizations like us within the Alliance for Middle East Peace. So you should go to their website and see who else is doing this work. And what I thought I would do in the remaining time here is to share some vignettes of the work of the Institute that I've experienced being there. So we have Israelis who are called up to Miluim this last year. They go to Gaza, they come back, and they have to be with their Palestinian classmates. And those are not easy conversations. They're very honest, they're very hard, they're very difficult, but things don't fall apart because we're able to create trust and rehumanize each other. It took us a couple of weeks to get Palestinians accepted for this fall semester because of the war. They eventually came, and some of them came to Rosh Hashanah services in the Beit Knesset of the synagogue. And actually it was Yom Kippur, I'm sorry. And one of the Palestinians explained the first time he'd ever been in a synagogue as a comforting experience. Now he said that while 2 rows behind him, there are 3 Israeli soldiers sitting in army fatigues and their machine guns. We had soldiers for the 3 weeks of the Chagim on the kibbutz, but it's the reality of the hope, the contradictions, and the reality that we face when we are there. We had a soldier who was wounded at the beginning of the war last year, and he was in intensive rehab until literally 3 days before this semester started. And he arrived, and on the year anniversary of his injuries, he had a rebirthing celebration at the Institute. And as each of sides of him while he's doing this, he had 2 Palestinian students hugging him. An Israeli who had fought in Gaza, was wounded in Gaza, a rebirthing ceremony, being hugged by Palestinians. And we see this over and over again. One of the ways that we're able to create this trust is that we don't just meet about the conflict, because that kind of hurts, but we have other touch points. Music, food, songs, dancing. And we have a culture now where people share their cultures every year. And this past year, one of the Israelis shared that his family originally came from Syria. And they have a tradition that at Seder, they sing Achad Mi Yodea in Arabic. So he taught this to all of the students, but ironically, it was the Palestinians who could sing it better because they knew the Arabic, unlike the Israelis and others there as well. And this past Thursday, I received this, or we all received from 2 semesters ago, this WhatsApp from one of our Palestinian students that I want to share with you. If I can get my right pin here, here we go. He wrote, this is from last Thursday, Journey Towards Hope. A year ago, like this day, I returned to the Institute after being away for 2 months. I initially left for a 2-day visit to my city in the West Bank, never expecting a war would break out and leave me stuck in my home for those 2 months. That war was extremely difficult for me. I was utterly unaware of what was happening around me. The feeling was profoundly distressing, yet I was entirely convinced that, and then he puts this in bold, the best place for me during the war was to return to you, Israelis and Palestinians and others, and stay with you. I knew deep down that I would not feel any sense of peace except with you because we are true and genuine partners, partners searching for life amid suffering, striving to be strong and to learn from the mistakes of the past to build a better future for ourselves. I won't hide it. I was ready to risk every obstacle and even put my life in danger just to be with you. And I could give you example of example of example like this for over the decades of what we've seen between our students, how we build trust and working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you everyone who spoke, all the 5 of you who came at this late. Well, for Michael, he's in the States now, but the rest of you, it's pretty late. We do have, before the next session begins, the next session begins at 3:25. So we still have, like 8 minutes here. And I only see there was one question from Jeremy Schwartz to Itamar. Nobody else put any other questions in the chat. I actually am going to take prerogative and ask a question to, you answered it in a bit, Michael, but also from Malila, that you said that now there's more people participating in the Sulha, because I would expect that given what the press is, how the Palestinian or Arab press is versus the Israeli press, that there would be so much anger on the part of Palestinians that I know that they wouldn't want to even talk to us anymore. So that's my gut. And so, and I see Itamar shaking his head, which is great, but I'm just curious. I'd love some response to that from one of you. You kind of answered it now, Michael, but I don't know if anyone has anything else to say about that.
I'll say Itamar, can I start and you can continue? I think that once people from both sides get to know each other, there is an incredible comfort of being together in times of sorrow and in kind of trying to nurture any kind of hope. And it actually feels strange not to do it once you're in it, once you're inside that culture. But there also needs to be that place for rage. And we've made place in the circles of allowing the terrible frustration of Palestinians, the terrible woundedness of Israelis to be part of the experience of the gatherings. It's like, how do you create a safe space where it's ritualized enough and where people have a possibility of making a blessing, of saying something, and to express the terrible things that you need to say, and also allowing people to come. I think that a lot of Palestinian men are coming to cry. They need a place where things happen when you come together, and when you have trust in it, it allows for a lot. And I think that's why more and more people coming. We're having a gathering on Friday. I think we're going to have 85 people. I think we're going to have more than 50% are going to be Palestinians. More than 60, maybe 60% are going to be Palestinian. And for many of them, these are the only times where they're coming out of the curfews on their towns and cities and refugee camps, and that we can be together.
Itamar, say
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. First of all, I agree. And it's important to say that people do talk. People talk all the time. People work together all the time. We don't have to love one another to understand. Many people do love one another, but we also don't have to understand that this is a very small land and we all share it. And so I think that many people do understand it and are working together. Just right now, I'm still getting messages from Gaza. And of course, they're not talking about peace. They're talking about humanitarian aid. They're talking about ending the war. But people are talking all the time. But it's also very important, I think, to say, because it wasn't published. But 2 weeks ago, I was in Berlin, a big conference with Israelis and Palestinians. And there was a researcher there, and he showed us surveys that were conducted just a few weeks ago, both in Palestinian society and in Israeli society. And the surveys showed that a majority in both societies still support the two-state solution. The problem is not that people do not want peace. The problem is that people do not believe it's possible. And so if they don't believe it's possible, they are looking for other solutions or choosing the way of war. But think about it, because I think that's amazing. After October 7th, during terrible war, still majorities in both societies would support peace if we'll be able to convince them that peace is possible. And so I think that people do talk with one another, and those people who speak with one another would also be the bridge, if we'll be successful, that would convince the two societies that it is possible, that we can actually not only talk with one another, but build a new future in our shared land.
Amita, may I add something, please?
Sure.
I wanted to add that a group of Jews and Arabs started meeting in Kol HaNeshama a few months after the war broke. It was an initiative that we started thinking about and planning a long time ago, but never realized it. And then a few months into the war, a group from Kol HaNeshama said, we want to find people to meet with on a regular basis. We turned to a dear friend, a friend of Melilla as well, Iyad, and he said, you know what, I think I can come up with a group, but let's start with something small, something achievable. Let's make it into a language cafe. Let's bring people together who want to practice their Arabic, their Hebrew, their English, and that's how we'll sell it, so to speak. And we've had now for more than 8 months a group of 20 Jewish Israelis and 20 Palestinians, some of them with Israeli citizenship, some of them from Eastern Jerusalem, who meet every 2 weeks on Monday afternoon at Kol HaNeshama to practice languages, but actually practice talking to each other and being together. Other people from both sides might say, how can you do it under these circumstances? You know, Jewish Israelis, on the one hand, many of them lost trust in meeting with the others, and Palestinians the same way. But those who want it can do it and come together and talk about food and taste each other foods and talk about the holidays and celebrate. And on Hanukkah, they're going to do a big event, just as we did during Sukkot. When people look for it, they find the people to cooperate and build the human connections with.
And if I can just quickly amplify all of this, there's this whole ecosystem that we represent, but since October 7th, there's all these new organizations that have been created. Voices of Solidarity. There's a group called Woodstock that actually is going to meet in 2 weeks in the Arava with 2,000 to 3,000 people using music and art to move peace forward. And so actually it's been growing what we have under these very, very difficult conditions.
All right. Well, it's 1 minute before we need to jump into the other session. We're going to get booted out of here. And thank you for the questions in the chat. I'm going to try to save. They've been saved, but some of them came only to me, Ash. I don't know if you got those. Do you get you don't have those, right? So don't everyone else can go, but I need to stay here and figure out how to save the chat because some of you asked questions.
And before,
Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
I'm sorry, before everybody does go, first, thank you all very much for attending. We didn't know how many people we'd have at the session. Wonderful that we've had this large group. We really wanted you to be able to hear from these wonderful presenters about the great work their groups are doing. We encourage you to contact them directly and make those connections that Amita talked about. Also, she and I would love to hear from you. The Joint Israel Commission, as Deborah said at the start, this is the opening of a discussion, of a dialogue within the movement and outside about how we relate to Israel and Palestine. We wanted to highlight for you positive ways to relate with these wonderful groups doing great work. And if you have other suggestions for other groups that we should highlight, or other things you think the JIC can be helpful in doing for the movement, we encourage you to contact me and Amita by email. We've provided our email addresses there. Again, thank you all very much. I think we're going to be shutting this down shortly. We encourage you to go back and hear the last plenary. I think that's going to be a great way to end the sessions today. And again, thank you all for coming, and especially to our wonderful presenters.